What if a moment from the past becomes so uncomfortable that even after decades, a star refuses to face it again? And what if that moment belongs to someone the world has adored since childhood, Hayley Mills? Her career is filled with bright success, yet one episode she filmed back in 1961 still stands as a memory she never wants to revisit. Before people knew her as the cheerful Disney favorite, she was already carrying pressures that few understood. While fans remember her early years as magical, she often describes that time as heavy, rushed, and far more confusing behind the scenes. That uncomfortable truth connects directly to the episode she avoids watching to this day. But this story doesn't start in the place you expect. It isn't about fame or awards. It begins in a small moment she wishes she could erase. A moment that followed her even while the world celebrated her bright smile. The episode may seem ordinary to viewers, but for Hayley, it brings back the part of her youth she rarely talks about. Stay with us, because ahead, we uncover why this single episode from 1961 still troubles her after all these years. The golden year that wasn't so golden. In 1961, the world looked at Hayley Mills and saw nothing but magic. To fans, she was the cheerful young star whose smile could brighten any theater. Newspapers wrote about her as if she were a real-life princess who had stepped directly out of a Disney fairy tale. Reporters followed her everywhere, praising her talent, her charm, her innocence. From the outside, it seemed like she was living the dream every young actor wished for. But once you step behind that curtain of applause and glossy magazine covers, a very different picture appears, one that the public never bothered to look at. That year, Hayley was pushed into a schedule that very few adults could handle, let alone a 14-year-old girl still trying to understand who she was. Every month was loaded with new expectations. One day, she would be on a film set. The next, she would be attending a publicity event. And then she would be flown somewhere else for a photo shoot. She had scripts arriving constantly, each demanding a different mood, a different energy, a different version of herself. There was no pause button, no break long enough for her to breathe and simply be a child. From morning to night, her time was not her own. Call times began before sunrise. Studio lights burned in her eyes for hours. Directors needed her to be focused, patient, and perfectly composed even when she wanted to rest. Hair and makeup teams hovered around her like a cloud of expectation. She was too young to protest, too responsible to complain, and too admired to show weakness. She had learned early that the world didn't want the real Hayley. They wanted the bright, polished version they saw on screen. Disney had built an image for her as a symbol of sweetness, purity, and perfect manners, and the world loved that image so much that it forgot she was a real child with real limits. Every interview required her to stay cheerful. Every handshake is expected to be exciting. Even when she was tired, she had to smile. Even when she felt overwhelmed, she had to appear grateful. It wasn't just acting on set anymore. It was acting in her daily life. People often say child stars are lucky, that they live easier lives because they have fame, money, and opportunity. But Hayley's daily routine in 1961 proves how untrue that belief is. What she lived through was not easy. It was pressure, a constant pressure to stay lovable, stay talented, stay successful. There was no room for mistakes. There was no space for her to grow slowly, the way other teenagers could. She wasn't allowed to be clumsy, confused, emotional, or unsure. She had to be polished at all times. Instead of moving at the natural pace of a child, she was pushed forward like a small machine built to keep the Disney dream alive. And like any machine that runs too fast for too long, she began to break down in ways people couldn't see. Exhaustion settled into her bones. She felt it in her eyes, in her movements, in the way she struggled to focus during long scenes. The harder she worked, the more disconnected she felt from her own life. And buried deep inside that stressful, overloaded year was the moment she still avoids the episode she refuses to watch. This wasn't just any scene. It wasn't just another job. It became a painful reminder of everything collapsing inside her. Those who worked close to her recalled how drained she looked during that time. Her energy faded between takes. Her posture sank. Her voice lost its usual spark. She was trying so hard to keep up, but her body was showing signs that no one around her wanted to see. Hayley herself later hinted that she wasn't proud of how she looked or acted in that episode, not because she lacked talent, but because she was too tired to be her best. There was a moment during filming where she felt everything slipping from her focus, her enthusiasm, her confidence. She knew she wasn't performing the way she wanted to. She felt the pressure tightening around her, and she carried that discomfort long after the camera stopped rolling. That episode became the symbol of her breaking point. It captured her exhaustion in a way she could not hide, and she never forgot how vulnerable she felt. Years later, when asked about that period, she said something simple but revealing. "I was so tired that year, I couldn't even feel proud. It wasn't said dramatically. It wasn't meant to shock anyone. It was just the truth of a young girl lost inside an industry that demanded far more than she could give." When you look at that one sentence closely, you understand why she still can't bring herself to watch that episode. It holds a piece of her she doesn't want to revisit, a reminder of a time when success felt heavy, when acting felt like pressure, and when her childhood slipped further away than she realized. Her tiredness is the key to the mystery. It explains why that year still feels heavier than the world ever knew. And it explains why one episode from 1961 remains locked in her memory, untouched and unwatched. The episode that won't go away. While The Parent Trap was becoming a worldwide sensation, Hayley Mills was given another task, a small television episode meant to showcase her growing popularity. From an outsider's perspective, it seemed easy. A minor role, a short shoot, a tiny addition to her already impressive year. Nothing compared to the massive Disney productions she was already starring in. Nothing compared to the dual roles in The Parent Trap that had required incredible focus, timing, and energy. On paper, it looked like a simple side project. But for Hayley, nothing about that time was simple. The timing couldn't have been worse. She had been working non-stop for weeks, moving from film sets to photo shoots, from interviews to rehearsals. Her days started before sunrise and stretched into the night, leaving almost no time to rest. Her body was tired in ways that no 14-year-old should experience, yet her mind felt even heavier. Each day demanded energy she didn't have, concentration she had to force, and charm she had to manufacture for the public. She later described that period as one where she felt pushed forward without stopping to breathe, as though she were a small boat being dragged by a strong current that refused to slow down. It wasn't the script that made the episode unbearable. On paper, the lines were simple. The story itself wasn't complex. Directors and producers might have thought this would be a light, easy project to add another credit to her name. But the real struggle was internal within Hayley herself. She arrived on set already drained. She walked onto the stage carrying weeks of exhaustion, layers of pressure, and the constant awareness that she was expected to be perfect. She felt disconnected from the work, from the crew, from the child she used to be, before fame had taken over her life. Even small gestures, her tone, her expressions, her movements revealed how worn out she was. Hayley later confessed that her voice trembled during certain scenes, not because the story demanded it, not because the character was frightened or emotional, but because she was overwhelmed. Every word she spoke, every look she gave, carried the hidden weight of a child trying desperately to meet impossible expectations. She was performing for herself, for the studio, for the fans, for the world. And all at once, she realized she couldn't keep up with the demands. When filming ended, the episode was wrapped neatly, the crew moved on, and the footage was sent into the archives. But for Hayley, the experience didn't simply fade away. That single project became a fixed memory, a still image of exhaustion that stayed with her. She decided then that she would never watch it again. Not because the episode was objectively bad, and not because she felt embarrassed. Those were trivial reasons compared to what she truly felt. She refused to revisit it because the girl on screen was not the Hayley Mills she knew inside herself. The version captured in that episode was tired, anxious, and trying too hard. An unpolished reflection of a child forced into the public eye too soon. Years later, Hayley explained the depth of that moment. "I could see how unwell I was," she said in an interview. "I was a child, trying to be perfect for everyone." Those words revealed the dual pressure she carried. The personal pressure of trying to feel adequate, and the external pressure to appear flawless to the entire world. The episode became more than a simple TV appearance. It became a mirror showing her in a state she couldn't reconcile with the shining star everyone else saw. Every glance at that episode would reopen the feelings of vulnerability, fatigue, and doubt that she had worked so hard to leave behind. Even small details, like the way her eyes looked in certain frames, or how her posture slumped when she thought no one was watching, became unbearable reminders of that season. Hayley wasn't just performing a character. She was performing for everyone around her while struggling to maintain her own sense of self. That tiny episode, meant to be just another line in her growing list of credits, transformed into a symbol of a year where life had moved too fast. Expectations had stacked too high, and the world had demanded more than a young teenager could give. For decades, that episode has remained locked away in her mind. She has acknowledged its existence, but she refuses to turn it into nostalgia or curiosity for the public. It serves as a private reminder of a time when she was overwhelmed, overworked, and emotionally drained. The episode exists as a snapshot of a girl who tried to navigate fame before she was truly ready, and Hayley chose to protect that memory rather than re-experience it. It became a quiet testament to the invisible struggles of child stardom, a small but powerful proof that even someone as talented and adored as Hayley Mills had moments she preferred to leave behind. In the end, the episode will never go away, not in her memory, not in its place in history. But Hayley has found a way to live with it peacefully, without needing to see it, without letting it define the entire story of her life. It is a frozen moment of vulnerability, yes, but also a testament to her resilience and her understanding that some memories are best preserved quietly, for oneself, away from the public eye. The uneven weight of child stardom. Many child actors talk about pressure. Some describe it as challenging but manageable. Others say it's overwhelming and constant. But Hayley Mills's experience in 1961 was different from almost anyone else's. She didn't just have the normal pressures of being young and performing. She carried a weight that was compounded by her family's legacy, the expectations of one of the biggest entertainment studios in the world, and the hopes of fans who treated her as a symbol of pure childhood innocence. This wasn't just acting. It was a responsibility she felt deep in her bones. Every word she said, every smile she gave, and every movement she made was under scrutiny, even if no one said so out loud. Hayley came from a family where acting was more than a profession. It was a tradition. Her father, John Mills, had long been an admired actor, and her mother, Mary Hayley Bell, was a creative force in her own right. Growing up, Hayley absorbed the values of discipline, professionalism, and artistic dedication. She loved performing, yes, but she also understood that mistakes weren't just hers. They reflected on her family. Every interview she gave, every camera angle she faced, reminded her that she was carrying a larger story, one that included her parents' reputation and the trust of the audience. And then there was Disney. Walt Disney Studios had put immense trust in her. They weren't just hiring another child actress, they were investing in a face that represented their brand of joy, charm, and innocence. Millions of people were watching, admiring, and believing in the world she projected. To Hayley, failing was not just a personal risk, it was letting down an entire institution, the people who had placed faith in her, and countless fans who saw her as something larger than herself. This heavy responsibility became visible in the small television episode she filmed that same year. Unlike her big movies, which had time, preparation, and multiple takes, this episode demanded energy she no longer had. She arrived on set, carrying exhaustion like a physical weight. Inside, her mind was scattered, her nerves frayed, her emotions raw. She later reflected that you could see fear in her teenage self during that shoot, not fear of cameras or lines, but a fear of failing everyone who counted on her. Each moment of performance felt like a test, a delicate balancing act between what the world expected and what her young self could realistically give. She doubted her performance constantly. In her own words, she didn't feel strong enough, prepared enough, or confident enough for what was being asked. Every smile she offered felt forced. Every gesture she made was measured, not because she was practicing acting, but because she was trying to convince herself and everyone else that she had it under control. Her mind wandered between thoughts of exhaustion, fear, and longing for a break she never seemed to get. Even when she performed, she was pretending to be calm, while inside, she was struggling. And yet, the world never paused for her. Reviewers didn't see the fatigue or the emotional strain. Fans didn't notice the tension hidden behind her cheerful facade. To them, she was a shining star, a beacon of energy and talent. But Hayley felt the truth differently. She saw it in still photos from the set. She noticed the slump of her shoulders when she thought no one was looking. She felt the tightness in her chest after long hours of performing. She recognized the exhaustion in her eyes, the strain in her voice, the way her movements betrayed a need for rest. Over time, that episode became more than just a minor job in her career. It became a symbol of what she had endured. Whenever the subject came up, Hayley dismissed it quietly, almost invisibly. She didn't want an analysis. She didn't want praise. She didn't want people to marvel at her talent or resilience. She didn't even want nostalgia. She simply wanted distance. That single performance, captured on film, was a reminder of a version of herself she preferred not to meet. It's remarkable that even decades later, after a career filled with brilliant performances and public acclaim, she avoids that episode. Why? Because when she looks back at those still photos, she doesn't see a rising star. She doesn't see someone glamorous, skilled, or perfectly polished. She sees a young girl who wants nothing more than rest, a pause from the relentless expectation, and the chance to simply be a child. That recognition that the image on screen was not fully her kept her from revisiting it. Child stardom often hides its true weight behind bright lights and applause. Hayley Mills' story is a perfect example of this hidden burden. While fans remember her as the cheerful girl from Disney classics, the reality behind the scenes was far more complex. Every performance, every smile, every line came at a cost. The uneven weight of expectations, family, studio, and public was enormous. And that small television episode from 1961 became a crystallized memory of that burden, a record of vulnerability she refused to relive. Ultimately, the episode remains a ghost of her past, untouched and unresolved, but also a testament to her humanity. It is a reminder that even in the midst of early fame, behind the glamour and applause, a young girl was trying to survive the relentless pressure of being everyone's perfect child star. The contrast that still haunts her. One of the main reasons this particular episode has remained a source of unease for Hayley Mills is the stark contrast it presents when compared to The Parent Trap. That film, released the same year, captured a version of Hayley that seemed effortless to the outside world. She appeared confident, clever, and energetic, carrying two distinct roles as twin sisters with a charm that quickly became iconic. Audiences laughed with her, cheered for her, and admired a young actress who seemed to embody the perfect combination of talent and charisma. It was a performance that projected joy, capability, and star power. And for the world, it became a defining image of Hayley Mills at her best. Yet the small television episode from 1961 tells a very different story. In those frames, the girl on screen looked tired. Her eyes betrayed fatigue, her movements lacked fluidity, and her energy was faint, almost forced. The difference between the two performances was striking. Where The Parent Trap showcased brilliance and vitality, the episode revealed a hidden struggle, a side of her that the public rarely saw. She herself later reflected, "People saw me glowing in The Parent Trap, but they never saw how drained I had become in real life." That single line captures the essence of why the episode still troubles her. It wasn't about her ability to act. It was about the unvarnished reality of exhaustion and emotional strain behind the scenes. The contrast does more than highlight her fatigue. It evokes memories of a year that moved far too quickly. 1961 was not just a year of success, it was a whirlwind of constant work, expectation, and responsibility. Every film shoot, promotional tour, and media appearance layered more pressure on a young teenager who had little time to pause or process what was happening. Normal teenage experiences, time to rest, to play, to grow, were almost non-existent. The episode became a visual representation of that overwhelming pace, a reminder of the physical and emotional toll that accompanied her professional achievements. It's important to note that Hayley doesn't dislike the episode itself. The script wasn't bad, and the production was professional. What makes it painful is the memory it carries, the way it mirrors her own struggles during a period when she was stretched too thin. Watching it would reopen emotions she has spent decades learning to manage. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the invisible pressure to maintain perfection at all times. Every scene on that small screen feels like a snapshot of vulnerability she'd rather leave untouched. In many ways, the episode serves as a mirror, reflecting not just her performance, but her inner life during that intense year. It reminds her of the contrast between what the world saw as joy, charm, and success, and what she actually experienced as fatigue, doubt, and the constant effort to survive as a child star. That duality, still vivid in her memory, is why the episode continues to haunt her. She doesn't resent it, but she feels the weight of the feelings it brings back. the reminder of a year when life was moving too fast, and success came at a very high personal cost. Her peaceful distance from the past. Today, Hayley Mills is known as a warm, thoughtful, and grounded woman. She reflects on her life with honesty and grace, speaking openly about the highs and lows of growing up in the public eye. Her career, her family, and her experiences as a child star are often subjects of interviews, discussions, and documentaries, and she shares her memories with a clarity that comes from decades of perspective. Audiences see her warmth, her humor, and her genuine nature, which make it easy to forget that behind the charm lies someone who has carefully navigated a life shaped by fame from an early age. Yet when that one television episode from 1961 comes up, her response is markedly different. Unlike her usual openness, she becomes gentle but firm, creating a quiet boundary around this single moment of her past. She doesn't dismiss it or pretend it never happened. She acknowledges its existence. She recognizes its role in her career and her life story, and yet she refuses to revisit it. This is not an act of avoidance in the dramatic sense. It's a conscious decision to protect a part of herself that is vulnerable and deeply private. The episode serves as a reminder of the exhaustion, pressure, and emotional strain she felt as a 14-year-old, feelings she has learned to manage over time but does not wish to relive on screen. Hayley herself once explained her perspective in a quiet, reflective way. Some memories teach us enough the first time. They don't need to be watched again. In those few words, she conveys a wisdom that comes from experience. The understanding that revisiting certain moments can reopen old wounds unnecessarily. The episode isn't scandalous. There is no hidden controversy or shocking incident tied to it. Instead, it represents a version of herself she prefers to leave in the past. A young girl trying to meet impossible expectations while juggling the responsibilities of stardom and normal childhood experiences simultaneously. That version of her is preserved in that episode, locked away not as a cautionary tale or a curiosity for the public, but as a private memory she has decided to protect. The decision to maintain distance from the episode reflects Hayley's larger approach to her life and career. Throughout her years in Hollywood and British television, she has carefully chosen the projects she participates in and the moments she allows to become public. She understands that fame can amplify both achievements and mistakes, and she has developed a sense of self-preservation that allows her to engage with the world on her own terms. This episode, small as it may seem to the outside observer, represents a time when her boundaries were tested and when she had little control over how she was perceived. Choosing not to watch it now is her way of reclaiming that control, of ensuring that the narrative of her life remains balanced between her public accomplishments and her personal well-being. It's also a reminder of the human side of fame. Fans, critics, and historians often focus on achievements, awards, and performances, but Hayley's story highlights the emotional reality behind those accomplishments. A career in the spotlight does not erase fatigue, doubt, or vulnerability. That single episode encapsulates what many child actors face, but is rarely acknowledged: the intense pressure to be perfect, the lack of time to process experiences, and the struggle to maintain a sense of self amidst constant expectations. By keeping it at a distance, Hayley demonstrates the importance of emotional boundaries, showing that even moments that are part of one's history do not always require public revisiting. In the end, the episode remains a quiet, locked-away piece of her history. It is not forgotten nor dismissed, but treated with care. It represents a young girl learning to navigate fame, responsibility, and personal limits, lessons that continue to inform the way Hayley approaches her life today. She has grown, matured, and found peace with her past, understanding that some chapters are better remembered internally rather than displayed for the world. That one episode is a testament not to failure, but to resilience. A reminder that even in the brightest spotlight, it is okay to protect the moments that hurt and choose which parts of our past we carry forward. Hayley Mills's journey reminds us that even the brightest stars carry shadows the public never sees. The world remembers her 1961 era as magical, full of charm and youthful energy, but she remembers it with honesty, a mix of excitement, exhaustion, fear, and growth. The episode she refuses to watch isn't a dark secret. It's simply a mirror she no longer wants to look into. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is choose peace over nostalgia. Her courage lies not in reliving every chapter of her career, but in setting boundaries that keep her healthy. And maybe that's why people still respect her so deeply. She has lived her life with grace, even when the spotlight burned too bright. If this story changed the way you see child actors, or if it helped you understand Hayley Mills on a deeper level, then make sure you stick around. We have many more untold stories, forgotten truths, and hidden moments from Hollywood's past coming your way. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, do you think celebrities should revisit painful chapters, or is it better to let them stay where they belong? Stay tuned for more stories that reveal what really happens behind the screen.